This is the Real Change Wilmington Podcast, Episode 5, Clinton County Veterans Service Commission. Our guest today, Jim Alcorn.
So I was engaged by the enemy a few times in the military. The one that was most significant was the day the suicide vehicle bomber decided to blow me up with his suicide vehicle. There were 5 individuals in the vehicle. Each one of us handled it differently. I feel like I'm doing okay. I'm pretty normal. Of course, I am being seen by the VA, so I'm in the very system that I represent.
Welcome, everybody. This is the Real Change Wilmington Podcast with your host, Dustin Pierce.
And the co-host, Emily Spencer.
Yep, and we have a great episode for you today. Not quite as long as our last episode, but still really good. So today we talked to Jim Alcorn at the Clinton County Veterans Service Commission and just hear from him about the different services that they provide, as well as how his own military experience has helped him or helps him to serve veterans here in Wilmington. Emily, what are some highlights that stood out to you from today's episode with Jim?
I think it was really neat to learn about everything the Veterans Service Commission offers to the veterans of Clinton County. Because, they're located right across the street from the Mediterranean by the big Veterans Memorial statue in that building. And you drive by it every day and you never really think about what goes on in there. But Jim, he's doing some really great things to help make sure that Wilmington's veterans are getting the benefits they deserve. And he was just a super nice guy. And, he fought hard for our country.
Yeah, and it was just cool to get an inside look to what the Veterans Commission does, because we drive by it all the time. So that was really neat. Before we bring in Jim, one thing that we want to highlight is that we were featured in the News Journal last week.
Right above the fold.
So if you got the News Journal last week and you were confused thinking that it was a subscription to GQ or Vogue, no, just Emily and Dustin on the front page.
Looking pretty fly.
Pretty fly for some white guys and gals. So yeah, thank you News Journal for helping us get the message out there, and thank you everybody who listened to our podcast and has liked and followed us on social media. We appreciate that, and we're excited to pump out more content.
And from the News Journal and everybody's great support of the podcast, we did have Carrie Ziegler reach out to us from Sleep in Heavenly Peace of Clinton County and asked us to put her resource on the website. If you don't know, Sleep in Heavenly Peace provides beds for children up to the age of 17 who don't have a bed, so nobody has to sleep on the floor.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I'm excited that people are reaching out and engaging with this resource. So with that, let's bring in Jim. All right, so we have Jim Alcorn here today, and Jim served with the U.S. Army from 1990 to 2017, and he is here today to talk to us about the Clinton County Veterans Service Commission.
Correct.
Awesome. So to get started, why don't you just give us a brief overview of who you are and maybe some of your experiences in the military.
Okay, so I joined the Army in 1990, as was previously stated. After I joined the Army, I went to Desert Storm and served in combat there. Went to Germany, from Germany to Georgia. From Georgia, I was like, okay, I'm done. So I took a 6-year break, so I got out at 94. Then I was like, the civilian stuff sucks, so I went back to the military in 2001 and then finished out my career.
Were you working in private business at that time, private sector?
I was actually a correction officer for the state of Ohio, so that was a unique experience because I was in a women's correctional facility. So I was one of the ones who didn't get walked out in silver bracelets, but I did see a lot of people get walked out in silver bracelets just for the way that the women inmates would manipulate them into situations or have them to commit some stuff that they weren't supposed to do, or bring something in that they weren't supposed to bring in. It was, like I said, it was a very unique experience.
Walk out in silver bracelets, you mean like...
Cuffs.
So women would walk out in cuffs, or officers?
Correction officers would walk out in cuffs.
How does that happen?
Because they break the rules.
Okay.
Or do something to violate the code of ethics.
I thought you meant when they were bringing in
No.
inmates, the correctional.
No.
Sorry.
No, it was a game for the female inmates. It's how many officers could they walk out? How many officers could they get arrested, get fired? So it was a game for them. You're stuck in 4 walls and you have nothing else to do other than see what you can get away with, and plus they're criminals. That's the reason they're there. Everyone says, "Oh, I was so innocent." Anyway, I was like, heck with this. I want to go back to the military and I want to continue to serve my country. I want to finish it out because it was always my goal to retire.
Mm-hmm.
So I did. I went back in, and of course, Iraq kicked off and Afghanistan kicked off. So I went to Iraq once and I went to Afghanistan twice, and I finished out my career in 2017. And like I was explaining to you before this recording, I was sitting at home, retired, in my PJs playing video games, and Jeff Rollins, who's our director, he called me up and said, "Hey Jim, I got a job for you." And at first I was like, "No way, I'm good. I don't need to work. You know, financially I'm set. Being 100% service connected and being retired, you know, I make plenty of money a month. I don't need any more money." He's like, "Come on, I need you. This would be a good job for you. And it's not really work. It's fun. You know, you're helping other veterans." So I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I put in my application and I competed against 4 or 5 other individuals. I won't mention their names out of respect. Jeff picked me. I went before the board picked me, and so here I am, the Veteran Service Officer for Clinton County.
Do you want to share a little bit about your experience in the military, like some of the things that you can be helpful for people? Or
So I was engaged by the enemy a few times in the military. The one that was most significant was the day the suicide vehicle bomber decided to blow me up with the suicide vehicle and blow us off the road. And like I explained to you before the podcast, there were 5 individuals in the vehicle. Each one of us handled it differently. I feel like I'm doing okay. I'm pretty normal. Of course, I am being seen by the VA, so I'm in the very system that I represent, and can talk smartly to other veterans about the system that I represent and the good that it can bring to your life. So
you were mentioning that there's 5 other people in the vehicle and they all handled it very differently. And you said some of your like past experiences with martial arts helped you cope with that, and so you're helping.
Correct.
Some of what you do is help veterans cope with their experience in the military.
Correct. So when someone comes in and asks for help, I mean, I know what I'm talking about because I've already been through the system and I've already been 100% service connected. So I'm able to walk them through the system. Even though it's very frustrating, I'm able to give them the tools that they need to be able to be successful. They're not all successful because some of them just don't have the criteria that's required to be in that system, but the ones that do have the criteria, I'm able to give them the tools that they need to be able to be successful. So I think...
What does that criteria mean? What do you mean?
So not every veteran is eligible for benefits through the VA. You have to meet a certain criteria. One of the criteria off the top of my head is you have to have served at least 1 year in active duty. So let's say you've got an Army reservist who's did 20 years in the Army Reserves, but they don't have 1 year of active duty time within that 20 years, then they may not be eligible for veterans benefits.
Okay.
Each situation and each individual is unique in the fact that it has to be researched by an investigator to see where they fall in that criteria. So even though they may not have a year, let's say that they were hurt during training and that's in their medical records, so then they would be eligible for benefits. But let's say they go 20 years, they don't deploy, they don't go anywhere, they don't have a year worth of active duty service, they may not be eligible for veterans benefits.
Do those people typically need veterans benefits if they're here the entire time?
Well, let's be honest. Every person needs something at some time in their life, right? I may be good right now, but let's say when I'm 70 years old, I may not be good. But because I'm service connected, I'm good. Take that other veteran we were just talking about who had 20 years, no active service, didn't deploy, didn't go anywhere, served their country faithfully and honorably, hit 70 years old, they're not good because they're not connected to the VA system. So I don't necessarily agree with the VA system, but it is what we have to work with. And until the laws change, until they make it all inclusive, right, to include every veteran, whether they served a day or a year, then that's kind of where we're at. But then, this is echelons above my reality, the finance, the money that's involved in taking care of, and the benefits that are involved, who's going to pay for it. Like I said, this is echelons above my reality. But right now, as it is, not every veteran is eligible. And a lot of people don't know that.
So if they weren't eligible and they retired, they couldn't go to the VA for medical services then? They had to get like private insurance?
They could, but they could get refused.
Okay.
For the fact that they don't meet the criteria.
Okay.
However, I don't know any VA facility that would refuse a veteran who served in any military services. Now, they may charge them a copay, right? Just like you would if you went to any other medical facility, but I don't know that for a fact. And that's just me speaking from my heart, saying that I don't think anyone would be refused, but I don't know for sure.
Mm-hmm. So how is the Veterans Service Commission different than the Department of Veterans Affairs, or is it the same thing?
Okay, so a lot of people don't understand this either. We have a VA clinic down here in Wilmington, right? That is a clinic. That is like going to sick call for those veterans who know I'm talking about. It's the place you go to be triaged, to say, hey, I've got a headache, can you give me some Motrin? Cool. It's not a hospital.
Is that on Locust?
It is. It's down the road here by the hospital.
Yeah.
It is kind of for a civilian, it's kind of the first door you have to go through to get into the VA. The VA hospital is no different than, say, Clinton Memorial or any of these other big hospitals around here. You don't go to Clinton Memorial if you have a headache, right? They're going to look at you and say, okay, you're paying a huge copay.
You shouldn't go if you have a
headache, and you're really wasting our time, right? That's really the way they're going to look at you. So it's kind of the same way with the VA hospital, is where you go to be seen by the VA doctors, clinicians, professionals, specialists. Even though they have a VA doctor in the clinic, it's not the same. Like, you don't go there to get a diagnosis and then come and claim disability. You have to be seen by someone at that hospital. So that's the best way that I can explain how our local community VA system is set up. If you want to get service connected and you want benefits, my recommendation to all my clients is pick a hospital. Dayton, Cincinnati, Chillicothe, one of them will give you a ride there and back. Go get seen by someone and get a current diagnosis, right? What we are is, I want you to envision an apple. If I take an apple and I cut it in half, what I just spoke about, the medical side of it, is that half of the apple. I'm the other half of the apple, where we put in and say, hey, this veteran has PTSD. He has a clinical diagnosis. It is within 3 to 6 months that this diagnosis has taken place. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to put in a claim for PTSD. That's one part of the elements that you need for a service connection is the diagnosis. The second part is you need an event. What happened while they were in the military to cause them to have PTSD? In my case, it was the explosion, right? I can definitively say in June of 2009, I got blown up, right? That's in my military records. So that would be my event, my diagnosis being PTSD. And then the third thing you need is what's called a nexus statement. A nexus statement is a scholarly document. It could be in the diagnosis where the doctor says, this is most likely caused by this. My PTSD was most likely caused by the fact that I was blown up and thrown around the side of a vehicle, right? So those are the three elements that you need to get a service connection. So that's what I do. That's what Jeff does, and that's what Jeannie does. The 3 J's here in Wilmington for the Veterans Service Commission. We do have a board, and we could go into the details about that, but I'll keep it simple. We are the ones who put in the service connection to the Veterans Administration, and then they investigate, they do their exams, and then they make the determination. We're kind of like paralegals, almost,
Sure.
because we prepare all the documents, we get all the evidence together, and we paint the VA in a corner. That's my job. I have to paint the VA in a corner and say, okay, based on the facts that this veteran has presented, to the best of my knowledge, this is where they're at, and make them say no. And when they say no, they come back with a VA letter response saying that they're going to deny the claim. Then we have to work to get over that denial. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes there's not enough evidence in their military records. Sometimes there's not evidence of them complaining about it after the fact, right? Like the day I got blown up, if I didn't go to sick call afterwards and complain about headaches, how can I complain that I have a headache in 2016?
Mm-hmm.
Why wasn't it an issue then? You know, and that's another thing that veterans don't understand too, is that from the day they exit the military to present day, if you've only got a year's worth of time that from that exit, then most likely everything that's going on with you physically is caused by the military, most likely. But if you got 25 years, the VA is going to say, hey, you've got 20 to 25 years of life experiences that could have caused these problems that you're having today. And that gives them the wiggle room to say no.
So, from my understanding, you help people locally to get connected to a hospital if they need that. And then once they get diagnosed, then you help them pay for those services through the VA? Help them get those paid for?
Essentially, because when you're service connected, the higher percentage that you have, the lower copay you're gonna have to pay, and the better services you're gonna receive. So think of it like a tiered organization. If you get your foot in the door at 10%, you're covered 10%. And then you go all the way up to 100%, you're covered 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And your copays reduce the higher you climb. That's why everybody's goal is to get to 100% service connected. But let me tell you, you got to be really messed up to be 100% service connected. Like, they don't just give that away. The VA is going to do everything they can to say no, because it's their job to save the government money.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's get into some of the services that you guys offer. On the website, it looked like you want to.
It looked like that you offered like 4 main categories of services for veterans: medical assistance, living assistance,
Is it transportation?
transportation, and finance. Thank you.
Yes.
I was literally like, I know it's got to do something with money.
Yes.
Are those the 4 main categories?
Yes, those are the 4 main categories. So transportation-wise, it is regulated by the state on who we can take and who we can't. We cannot take a person who's not a resident of Clinton County. You have to be a resident of Clinton County, and you have to be a resident of Clinton County for at least 90 days. If not, then we're not going to be able to legally take you. And we can't take you to Walmart. We can't take you to Big Lots. We can't take you to Kroger. We can only take you to VA appointed appointments. Now, some of those VA appointments are outside the VA system, which is fine. We can take you to Kettering Medical as long as the VA says that we need you to go to Kettering Medical, right? We have that burden of proof.
So you're, I'm sorry. So you're not like the transit here in town. It's based solely on the VA's need for you to be somewhere.
Correct. We are not a taxi service. I mean, that's the only way to put it. However, we will drive you to Cincinnati because there is a VA center there. We will drive you to Chillicothe. We will drive you to Dayton. We have drivers set up for those routes.
And is there a fee for that, or is it free
No.
for veterans as needed?
Every service that we provide for the Veterans Service Commission is free. And I would like to touch on that too. A lot of people who get service connected, get denied, will go out to a lawyer and ask that lawyer to give them help to get that service connection. Well, that lawyer is going to charge a fee. Why would you pay for something that's absolutely free, right? But there are people out there who do that choice, make that choice. I'm going to go get a lawyer to help with my claim. Okay, go ahead.
I mean, veterans choose that option if they're denied by you, or
If they're denied by the VA.
okay,
Because we don't deny anyone.
okay,
You know, the only thing that we deny is, are you a veteran? Are you a veteran of Clinton County?
hmm
Okay, yeah, we can take you. If you're from Highland County, well, I'm sorry, you're going to have to call Highland County for your transportation. That's the only thing we really deny. Or financial assistance is also one that you brought up. We will deny someone if it is outlandish, or if we see a pattern of abuse, or if we see that, hey, they could afford this bill based on the numbers they provided us, but why haven't they? You know, so it's a case-by-case basis as well. And there are situations where they make enough money, but say the wife just got laid off, and she's been laid off for a year. She just got back to work. Well, now they're at a point where they just can't make ends meet. So if we give them that just little bit of a financial assistance nudge, that they'll be okay in the following month. We're not a soup kitchen. I hate to use that word, but that's
you have rules because you're part of the government.
we do.
So, yeah,
We do, and we also have 3,000 veterans in this county that we have to serve. So we can't put all of our eggs into one veteran and say, okay, we're going to pull you out of this mess. We just can't do it because we have 2,999 other veterans who might be in a similar situation. But what helps is the fact that I'm also the quartermaster for the VFW, so I can reach out to my contacts in the VFW and say, hey, I've got this veteran who's in trouble. Can we do something? And the American Legion is also an organization that I can reach out to, and I have contacts there and say, hey, we have a veteran who's in trouble. As a matter of fact, this Christmas, once again, no veterans' names, we were able to help a veteran and his family have Christmas. So we gave them X amount of dollars, and the VFW gave them some money, and the American Legion gave them some money. So they were able to have Christmas. Now they're back on track. The wife's back to work. Everything's good to go.
that's awesome. You're able to support someone who's supported our country.
And it's a great feeling.
Yeah,
What's not so great of a feeling is telling the veteran no. But we have to sometimes because we have to consider the bigger picture. You know, if you're walking in and you're saying, I'm 6 months late on my rent, and our rules say we can only help you with 2 months, I'm sorry, Charlie, but why'd you wait so long? You know, and that's my biggest thing and my biggest message to all veterans out there and their families. Don't wait. If you're in a situation, come immediately. Don't wait 3 months, 6 months down the road and say, hey, can you help me? Well, yeah, we'd like to help you, but there's no way we could get you out of this mess. But if you come to me the day that, okay, we're in trouble, instead of putting it off, we might be able to help you get out of that mess.
and you guys help a veteran's family as well, right? How does that work?
So let's say that I have a veteran who passes away, and then we have a widow who is struggling. One of the things that we can do is we can provide that widow food vouchers. So it would save her a little bit of money on groceries. So that's how we help widows of veterans. So that would be an instance where we help the veteran's family.
Is that different than getting food stamps or?
Yeah, because it is a service that we provide and we pay for, but we give them an allocation of funds to go and purchase groceries. You know, obviously it has to be food. It can't be anything other than food and drinks. You can't buy diapers. You can't buy oil. You know, and we tell them up front you can't do it, but they still do it. And then we have to say, okay, you're blocked from the program until you pay this money back. So we're very extravagant on what we do because we can get audited, we
Sure.
can get in trouble, we can get fired. And just because of that one veteran who abused the system, 2,999 of them lose benefits because we get fired,
Yeah.
right? So we have to be cognizant of what we do, and we have to look at the big picture.
It's a lot of responsibility.
It is.
So you were talking
Yes.
about how if a veteran isn't from Clinton County, been here for 90 days in Clinton County, as a resident, they can't get services here, like if they were from Highland County. Does every county have a VSC?
So there are 88 counties in this great state of Ohio, and we're unique in the fact that there's not a lot of states in the United States who have that many veteran service officers. And I will tell you that the rules are different everywhere.
Every county.
Yeah. There are some rules that are consistent, like the transportation thing, that's a state thing, so that's a rule that we apply all across the board. But the rules are different because you have some counties like Warren County who have a bigger budget than we do. So they can do more than what we can do, right? And our budget...
Provide more services than you?
Correct.
Okay.
Or be able to say yes more often as opposed to saying no. Like they have a bigger budget to work with than we do for financial assistance and stuff like that.
So we talked about medical, transit, financial. What was the other one?
Housing.
Housing housing's more financial, right?
So housing is a sore subject with me because right now I have had conversations with our director and the funds are just not available. We don't really have a plan to house homeless veterans, right? And even being in the homeless veteran or the homeless commission here in Clinton County, which is like a coalition of Clinton County, Warren County, like they've all getting together to try and address this homeless situation. There's not really a plan for veterans. So that's one thing that if I was the man for the day, I would make something to where we either bought a house or had some kind of temporary lodging set aside for veterans who get in that situation. Temporary now. Get them in there, get them settled so they're not on the street, take care of them for a little bit, and then say, okay, get your stuff together. I almost said a bad word. Get your stuff together and, pull up your bootstraps and get back on track, right? But right now we don't really have that. We can offer like vouchers for hotels and stuff like that, so that's something we can do. But we don't have anything set aside like the houses that they have set aside for drug addicts and people with substance abuse, right? They have houses set aside for them. They have places set aside for them, but they don't have anything set aside for veterans.
Is the need for veterans who are homeless in Clinton County temporary, like you're saying? So like they just need it for a short while? And
right.
What gives them a temporary need? So
most veterans, and I say this probably because I'm biased, but most veterans have the tools to survive most any situation, right? They're put through rigorous training. They're put through physical and mental training, and some of them breaks of them, some of them, they're just like, no, this is not going to beat me. So with that being in mind, I think that the veteran community is more apt and more resilient and able to deal with life stressors than say a normal person would, right? And like I said, I'm biased. I'm a veteran, so I am biased in that. But that is my opinion. And people can argue with me if they want, but I believe that they have the tools to be able to get through that. That's why I say temporary. We'll get you in a place, set you up, make sure you're good. All right, we're going to work to get you a job. We're going to work to get you straight. Once you're good, you're out, you're back on track, because stuff happens. Stuff happens out of our control all the time.
Yeah.
So you see it on like social media and on television and everything about the statistics on homeless veterans, and then listening to you speak about your experience as somebody who went for nearly 21 years in the military. You said that when you retired, you were taken care of and everything was good. So just as somebody who doesn't have any knowledge on the military, how do we end up with so many homeless veterans?
So there's a couple of reasons why that happens. One, I would say that once again, if I was the man for the day, this is a system I would fix. When you exit the military, there's not a lot of love there. It's almost like you're giving up, you're out, kick you to the curb. They don't brief you on anything. They don't set you up for anything. Hey, good luck. Boom, kick you in the butt as you go out the door. So that was my first experience in 94. In 94, I was not service connected. I did not know about the VA system. I heard about it, but I didn't know anything about it. Well, if I would have knew then what I know now, right? I could have potentially had millions of dollars owed to me by the government that I just didn't know anything about because I was a Desert Storm veteran. That right there locked me in for service-connected benefits because they have what's called presumptives. They presume that you had this problem because you were in Desert Storm, right? Now, I don't know the rules at that time, but potentially, now knowing what I know now, that's thousands, possibly millions of dollars that I could have had from 1994 all the way to 2017.
If you would have just talked to
If I would have talked to the right person and if I would have been briefed to talk to the right person. Mm-hmm. So that's one system that they really need to improve on is soldiers exiting the military. So in my situation, I wasn't homeless because I had a family. I didn't have any kind of a substance abuse thing going on. So I was able to get back into life and become a productive member of society. A lot of people don't have that opportunity. Some people, they just get kicked out, or they do their service and then they end their time and they're like, okay, cool. Now what am I going to do? They have no plan, right? And when you don't have a plan going into something, that's where you invite chaos, and chaos inevitably is going to take over your life and stuff's going to happen. I almost said a bad word again.
We're laughing because our goal this year is to cuss less because we have very abrasive personalities in general. So like we instituted a rule of having a cuss jar, and at the end of the month, whoever cusses the most has to buy coffee for the other person.
That's a good rule.
Not that we think it's a bad thing. We just want to do it a little bit less.
So to expand on what you're saying is, I believe that's what creates a homeless situation, is not having a plan, not having the finances or the resources backing you when you get out. Now, it was different when I retired. When I retired, it was, we're going to tell you about this. We're going to tell you about this. So there was a lot better of an exit strategy, and I had more money set aside, and I was good. Once my retirement kicked in and my disability kicked in, I was good. I didn't need to work. I don't need to work now, but I do because I enjoy what I do. I enjoy helping veterans.
So speaking to that point, what has been maybe one or two of your proudest moments at the Veterans Commission getting to serve people?
So once again, not using any names, out of professionalism, Vietnam veteran, never claimed anything in his life just because he was too proud or whatever. I'm not going to speak to why he didn't do it. Gets cancer because he was exposed to Agent Orange. Comes in, shows me his paperwork. I tie his Vietnam service with the DD-214. That's why the DD-214 is so important, because that's the source document that the VA goes by. Shows that it was in Vietnam, shows that he was in a place where he was exposed to Agent Orange, and to this day he's 100% service connected and living the best life that he can for the remaining days he has.
Yeah.
That right there was one of the proudest moments. Another one was a spouse. The veteran had passed away, also a Vietnam veteran, also exposed to Agent Orange. We found an error in his records. She got a back pay of almost $500,000.
Shoo-wee.
And that was in this county. So once again, that was, oh my God, that was awesome. Right? We were so happy for her because that just changed her life.
Yeah.
Right? That changed her life.
And good for her too. I mean, it's such a hard thing to deal with, and glad that you could do that for her.
And we've had several instances where people have gotten huge back pays because we found errors in the records, or because there was what they call a clear and unmistakable error where the VA made an error and was able to catch it, and then they get huge back pays. So the Service Connection program has gone all the way back to the George Washington days, because they didn't know how to deal with veterans who were injured and lost arms, lost legs. How do we compensate them? So it's a program that's been in place for a very long time, and like any program, it needs to be updated, right? They need to look at things. They need to look at who's in charge of things. They need to look at the way systems are ran. But we could all say that about everything in the government. But the way it is, it's working not all the time. Like, there's some things where like, man, you're going to get connected, and they don't. And then there's some things where like, there's no way you're going to get connected, and they do. So I don't understand the mentality between what's going on there. There's a little bit of luck involved for sure.
Yeah.
Like,
it's life.
Yeah.
What are some other resources for veterans in Clinton County that people should know about, whether you're veterans or just the general community?
So if you're a veteran, I encourage every veteran to become a member of the American Legion or the VFW, especially if you're a veteran of a foreign war, because there are so many resources available just within those two clubs in town that you can tap into. I mean, from personal advice to financial advice to just having a camaraderie, because a lot of us, when we're in the military, you build that camaraderie, that family. Like, Jeff is closer to me than my blood brother, right? We've known each other for 20 years.
Did you serve together?
We did not.
Okay.
We served in the same places.
Mm-hmm.
We've kicked the same rocks and crushed the same sand. We never served in the same unit together, but we've always been friends. And he's more of a brother to me than my own brother is. Josh Riley, another one. There's so many people out there who are veterans that I consider more family than my actual family, which is sad to say because I love my family, right? I'm not a terrible person, but it's just because we've been through certain things that my family will never understand.
Yeah.
Jeff's been through some things that I'll never understand. I've been through some things that he didn't go through, but we've had similar experiences, similar enough to bring us together as brothers.
Yeah. And then the general community, how can we help support you or veterans in Wilmington and Clinton County?
I would say come to events. Like if we have something at the Veterans Memorial, come to the events. If you have a little extra money and you want to find something nice to do with it and you want to give to a charity, give to the Veterans Memorial. It's always got to be maintained. It's always got to be cleaned. It's always got to be changed. Matter of fact, the way it's set up now, Afghanistan is not represented in there at all. So we have to update the memorial to represent Afghanistan because it's a war that we went through and it's now over. So we have every other war represented. Why don't we have Afghanistan represented? So at some point, we're going to have to change the memorial, and that's going to cost a lot of money.
Does your organization manage that memorial?
We do.
Okay.
We do. Actually, Jeff is the one who manages that account.
Okay.
And it is not a Clinton County thing, right? It's not a Clinton County account. It's strictly for the Veterans Memorial or for the Veteran Services.
And that's the area across from the Mediterranean restaurant, the big circle with all the flags? Is
Correct.
that the memorial? Okay.
Correct.
It's a nice area. Like,
yeah.
Makes the town
and another
nice.
thing you can do is if you don't want to donate to charity and you want to honor your veterans, we have a brick system. We call it a paver system. So where you can submit your name or their name and the time they served and maybe their campaign, and you can put their brick in the memorial on the pavement. And that allows you to see and honor your veteran, but it also gives back money to the memorial as well. So some of that money goes to the memorial.
Nice.
And we have 2 order dates each year. One is going to end the 14th or 15th of this month, and that's for Memorial Day. And then they're going to have another order for Veterans Day. So you can only do them twice a year. And then we go out there, we get the bricks, we go out there, we place them, we clean up the memorial for each one of those services, and we just invite the community to come out.
Nice.
That would be how the community could support us.
All right. Jim, thanks for coming on the podcast. Thanks for all you do to serve veterans in the county. Thanks for coming out of retirement to do that. Thank you for your service.
Yeah,
Appreciate it, sir.
an honor to serve.
Well, that's it for today's episode, people. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to us talk with Jim Alcorn over at the Clinton County Veterans Service Commission. I hope you got some more insight into who Jim is and what they do. So if you know a vet or if you are a vet, please connect with Jim over there at the Veterans Service Commission and get plugged in with that organization.
And if you're not following us already on social media, you can find us at Real Change Wilmington on Facebook and on Instagram at Real Change Wilmington, all lowercase, all one word. We're also on YouTube where you can view our podcast under Real Change Wilmington as well.
Yes, and our app is still pending, so hopefully soon, maybe next week, we will have our Apple and Android apps ready. But until then, thanks for tuning in, and I'm your host, Dustin Pierce.
And I'm the co-host, Emily Spencer.
Until next time, keep it real, Wilmington.